am a professional fundraiser by trade. I will ask anybody for money to support a good cause. Fun fact, about 15% of people will actually invest in whatever franchise they start looking at. So I think it's important that we dig deep on skill set, what is motivating somebody to invest in a franchise or at least start looking at that.
Do you help them find the right industry before you even start looking at a brand?
Some people financially just aren't really ready to make that investment. And so just if you're curious as how much it costs to invest in a franchise, we can talk through that.
Hello, my name is Kandra Whitowski and I am the Director of Business Development here at Scoop Soldiers. And one of the fun parts of my job is I get to co-host the Find Your Gold podcast, where we help to inspire entrepreneurship, maybe shed a little tip or trick along the way. And for me, you never know, I might be talking directly to my next pet waste millionaire, and there may be questions they have about pet waste removal or Scoop Soldiers. As usual, we are on the road. We are in Phoenix, and I could not help but voluntold Laura to come in and be on our podcast. I've worked with her a handful of times on various candidates, and she's a franchise broker with Mint Franchise Consulting. She has a wealth of knowledge. She's been an excellent mentor and always had great tips and tricks to share with me. And she was kind enough to come in and join us for a little bit. So I'll kind of shut up here for a second and tell us who you are and what you do.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Kandra, for having me on the show today. So as Kandra said, I'm Laura Rolphe. I am the CEO of Mint Franchise Consultants. I also host a podcast called Powered by Franchising, if you want to check that out. And my role is to simply help aspiring entrepreneurs find a business that aligns with their investment goals and then go through the discovery process from beginning to end. I introduce them to the franchisors, people like Kandra, that's where we've met, and then understand things like a franchise disclosure document. We'll have a pre-call before they talk to you, just to have, it's not such a shocking thing because those things are kind of ginormous. And then I'll provide some sample questions that might be important to ask and get answered throughout the discovery process, introduce them to franchise attorneys, etc. So anyway, I'm from beginning to end, my services are always free to my candidates. I do get compensated by the franchisors that I work with. But it's such a joy to help change lives through business ownership. I know that that's been an impactful part of my life, starting Mint Franchise Consultants 5 years ago.
So I guess I've known you for a long time. I never asked, how are we here? How did you start your own franchise consulting business? Were you a franchisee before? Were you a franchisor? How did you get here?
That's an interesting question. I didn't know that a franchise consultant was a thing. So I spent 25 years in nonprofit. So I am a professional fundraiser by trade. I will ask anybody for money to support a good cause, pet charities included. And COVID impacted a lot of us. And I found myself in a transition point. I was laid off and decided I didn't want to go work for anybody again. I had experience working with several very large franchise systems doing cause marketing campaigns.
Okay.
And so I decided to start exploring franchise opportunities for myself. And I went pretty far in the discovery process with 2 of them, but I liked consulting because I was able to impact a larger group of people all across the country. It's not tied to a territory, so I do work with candidates all across North America and helping them find the right fit franchise. And I just it felt like it was in alignment with what I was interested in doing. My parents owned a beer distributorship growing up, so I saw the value of being a business owner, the hard work and grit that it took for them to be successful in that beer distributorship. But I also saw the flexibility and freedom that being a business owner allowed them to participate in theater and PTA and take my sister and I on trips. They had a lot more flexibility than having to ask a boss to see if they could get the time off on summer breaks or winter time over Christmas time. So business ownership was a value that was instilled in me early on.
A little seed that was back in there, huh?
Yes.
I think too, like for me, I obviously probably similar to you, I talk to lots of people that want to own a business, and you may agree or disagree, but I don't know that everyone should own a business, right? So and I tell people, I literally tell people every week, I'm like, it's not like you're going to sign your franchise agreement on October 1st. On October 15th, you're going to just drive down to the bank and catch big bags of money. Like there's a lot of stuff from start to finish, right? You got to kind of get over the hump and get there. So how do you, I'm sure you get, like I said, you get lots of people that contact you. How do you weed out, or how do you direct people into where they're at in their life, and if they're going to be a good business owner, how they get there? Like what are the steps that you would kind of ask them to take or consider?
Well, I start with their why. Why are you looking at business ownership? Why are we having this conversation today? And I can gain a lot of insights on that. So if you're listening to this show today, I encourage you to talk with your partner about your why. Why do you want to be a business owner? Are you tired of being cuffed to a job, those golden handcuffs, so to speak? Are you looking to build wealth for your family? A saleable asset that you could sell down the line. I don't really encourage people to look at franchising as buying a job. So
no, yeah, I'm not looking for someone to buy a job. I'm looking for an empire builder, someone to start. Maybe you start in the truck, right? But the goal is to get you out running a business. So as a franchisor, I'm like, thank you for that. Like that's helpful for us.
Exactly. So you want to know what goes on in all aspects of your business. So what happens in the truck? How do you scoop poop? How do you interact with the customer and handle customer service issues? That's very important, but you want to have an empire builder mentality. And so we talk a little bit about the background of the client as well. So do they have sales experience? Have they dealt with customers? Is it B2B sales or is it customer sales? Do they have operations experience, managing people? Because there's a lot of things that the franchisor is going to teach somebody who becomes a new franchisee, but some skills it's important to be able to follow systems. So I look and we talk through essentially the resume of a candidate and highlight anything that stands out to me as a consultant that I encourage my candidates to highlight when they're talking to you. So if they've managed teams for a long period of time, they've had to hire and fire people, if they've built a sales team, if they've done a lot of sales themselves, if they've looked at key performance indicators and know how to make some tweaks and changes to the marketing plan. Those are all great skill sets to have and very, very transferable to a franchise. And some people, are younger and may not have all of those skill sets, but they have some of the tangibles of being able to, they have experience in working with people. You got to play nice in the sandbox.
And not everyone's, very few people are great at everything, right? So when I talk, and when I'm talking to people, and even when I get them for brokers, we're talking and figuring out, okay, well, you're great at the numbers. Maybe you're not as operationally sound. Perfect. Like now I know what support I need to give you as a franchisor.
Yes.
So kind of understanding, it always sounds, you have to be completely vulnerable and tell Laura all the things, tell me all the things, because we do not want to award a franchise to somebody and then drag them kicking and screaming for the next 10 years. And you also want to make sure that you got the right person in the right seat. So when somebody comes to you and you figure out their why, do they know where they want to, I want to buy a Scoop Soldiers, I want to be in the pet industry. Do they know, or do you have to help them, or do you help them find the right industry before you even start looking at a brand?
Well, a fun fact, about 15% of people will actually invest in whatever franchise they start looking at. So I think it's important that we dig deep on skill set, what is motivating somebody to invest in a franchise, or at least start looking at that. How long have you been looking at a franchise? So if it's your first time looking at a franchise, it might take you a while and us to go through and see what is a good fit. I talk about industries that I lean into that I think are scaling and growing and build those empires. Pet care is absolutely one of those top 5 for me to present to my candidates. 86 million households have a dog, including mine. So it's important to talk through and see where people kind of land and Are they going to be involved in the business full time? Are they thinking that they're going to keep a full-time job and do this part-time, semi-involved? We've talked through what does that really
mean?
like?
Right, yeah. Semi-absentee to me is a very big wiggle word, right? Like semi-absentee to me means almost completely not semi-absentee. But there may be someone that's like, well, I only need to be there like once a week. Well, that's not a good fit for me, right? Like, so working through like what they need, because it's a big stinking deal. Like, it's a big deal to start a business. So once they come to you, you got the why, and you kind of walk them through like what industry is best. Then how do you make sure that you're placing them with the right brand? So you have someone that comes to you like, I love dogs. Perfect. Like, they're operationally sound. So then you start looking at like a scooping company and a pet sitting company or a pet store. Like, I'm so intrigued on how, because the people that I get, they're already interested in us. Right. Yes. So how do you funnel them to the right spot? To me, that seems like a huge obligation to try your best to get it right. How do you do that?
So we do a few things. One is I've been doing this for 5 years. So I've helped place a lot of candidates in a lot of great businesses. I've recently added a business profile assessment tool to help me best match folks. And so I'll use that. I use AI to help with some of the matching as well. So
that's cool.
Scoop Soldiers is an emerging brand. So is somebody interested in getting in on the ground floor, really making an impact and a difference and being the face and the leader in an emerging brand? Or do they feel a little more comfortable with a brand that has a lot of locations? So that's part of what I look at. Are they looking at a brick and mortar location? Do they want a doggy daycare or something that they go to every day? Or do they want something that's home-based to start and then they scale to having a location where they park the trucks and they meet with their teams, etc. So we'll talk about what their desires are, and we'll talk through the benefits of both models, because there's definitely benefits to mobile franchises like
service-based.
And then number of employees, that is a factor as well. And you do have to like dogs if you're in a dog franchise.
Like, even when you're a pooper scooper, you don't see as many dogs as people would think you do. But we do see dogs. And I can't have a franchise owner or a tech that's like, oh my gosh, there's a friendly black lab out there. We need you to bring him in. We're going to need you to just scoop the poop anyways. Like, put the poop in the bucket. Like, that's what obviously want everyone to be safe. But like, if you have someone have a fear of dogs, that maybe a bakery is a better idea. Like, maybe you should own a different bakery. So how do you vet out franchisors? Because there are, I don't even know whether thousands and thousands of franchisors. Scoop Soldiers, I think, is a pretty decent brand.
Yes,
it's a pretty good brand. But I mean, there's other things, right? There's other people that are out there. There's other brands. How do you vet out a franchise brand that you feel confident placing your candidate into? Because you're really working them through, getting them to a spot, and then you're handing them over to us to finish the rest of it. Like, how do you pick who's good enough to be in your book of business?
Well, there's about 4,000 franchises at any given time. There's about 320 new franchisors every year and about 320 that don't renew every year. Fun fact. So I work with about 800 brands, more, so big name brands. So if somebody comes to me wanting a McDonald's or like a big name, their white space is pretty limited and they target a certain type of people. So as far as franchisors that I work with, first off, I do my best to get to know the franchisor, to understand their business model, the franchisee support. If I can validate with any of their current franchise owners, I do that. I live in Phoenix, which is a very big city, so there's lots of franchisees here. Sometimes I'll just walk into a franchise location, or I'll go check out their location somewhere, and so I'll try and validate if I can.
Like, secret shop a little bit.
And then I have a conversation with the franchisor. Was it easy for me to book on their calendar? Did it take a while? Did they respond to me? Because I feel that that's going to be very much how they're interacting and working with candidates that I'm referring to them. What is their process in communicating with the candidate and with me? Are they good at booking that next meeting? So book a meeting from a meeting. So you're keeping the process going, and build relationships. And a lot of franchisors I will go meet with them in person. I was just at a large national brand last week in home services.
Okay.
Got to meet with 19 franchise developers
Oh,
and
cool.
several of their franchisees, which gives me a big insight as to what that might look like. I also look at the franchise disclosure document. What does that tell me? And not all franchises are going to have like an item 19, which is earnings claims, but do they have any red flags in that system? Are they having steady, solid growth, but not too fast? There are some brands that I won't recommend because I feel like they've grown so quickly. How are they going to support getting all of their franchisees open? And then there's some that just, you know, you look at the numbers and you're like, that percentage of closures or transfers is pretty high.
Right.
How long have they been in business? So that's the other thing, because most franchise agreements are 10 years. So there's going to be some attrition after 10 years, and there's going to be some bad fit franchisees. That's just
sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, so we got to dig a little bit deeper. So those are some of the things that I look at to help guide my candidates to the right fit brands.
Yeah. So a franchise disclosure document, an FDD, if you're in franchising or considering franchising, you will become, especially if you're working with a broker with multiple brands, you'll become very familiar with an FDD, a franchise disclosure document. It is, I tell my candidates that it's not the most riveting piece of document you're ever going to read, but you should read it. I want you to read it. And then we do a follow-up call to make sure I can point out the things that I want to make sure they saw.
Yes.
We try to be as transparent as we can. But what is your opinion on an item 19? Do you shy back from a brand that doesn't list an item 19? Because you said it's not required.
Right.
Or is that one of the things that you're like, it's not a no, but let's dig deeper. What are your opinions on that?
Well, a lot of emerging brands don't have an item 19. They might
They've not been around long enough to have one.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or just for a variety of reasons. So we talk about other ways to validate the numbers. There's usually ways to validate by talking to the franchisor, looking at financial statements from the franchisor, having those conversations with any current franchisees. So there's ways around it. So it doesn't mean it's a no. If somebody doesn't have an item 19, it just means let's talk through it a little bit more. I do work with several funders that will also help me validate
that's interesting.
the franchise system. So is the franchise listed on the SBA registry, meaning that they're approved for SBA funding? Even if you're private self-funding a franchise, it's a good indicator if the SBA will back the business or if they won't. If the SBA won't back the business financially, then that's a red flag.
It's another question to be asked. So the big thing in franchising too, which is why I think we have an item 19, but I also agree if it's not there, it's not a hard no. We just have to look farther.
Yes.
So if you're looking at a franchise and they do not have an item 19, don't be like, well, ask more questions. But in franchising, the big thing is we cannot forecast profit. And the FDD, that franchise disclosure document, helps. It's like, so in sales, sometimes I'm like, God, I wish I could share more with you, right? But you only can review what's in that item 19, whatever's listed there. And it's good and bad, right? Sometimes I have more information that I just can't share. But I tell people that's a great question to ask our franchise owners during validation. Ask them that. But the important part for me that I really find valuable is not being able to forecast profit prevents franchise brands that maybe aren't as stand up as we would like.
Yes.
Because there's great doctors, there's bad doctors, there's great franchisors, there's bad. There's both ends of the spectrum from saying, well, if you buy a Scoop Soldiers franchise, you can put your kids through college. Or if you buy a franchise, you can afford a yacht. We can't forecast the profit for a specific reason because we could be wrong. The franchise might not perform as well in an area. The franchisee might not perform well in an area. There's lots of other reasons, but we get asked all the time, when am I going to make money? How much am I going to make money? Where's my money coming from? And the best we can do is I tell them it's napkin math. I can give you a blank chart of accounts. I can give you item 19 and I tell you to write down all of your questions and then run that by one of my franchise owners because they can validate what they do in their own area. And that usually helps franchise candidates make a decision. So that's something similar that you do is you tell them, let's do a little math and then let's validate it out with another franchise owner in that brand?
Absolutely. So we'll look at the item 19 and then we'll also look at the item 6. So what are your ongoing projected costs going to look like? If you're taking out an SBA loan, we'll take that into consideration. So you can look at the amortization. I have a chart that can help with that from one of our funders. And so, while we can never guarantee or project or predict, you as the candidate are responsible for doing, you call it napkin math. I call it an Excel spreadsheet that has some formulas in it. Whatever's easy. And then, yes, you've got an opportunity to validate that information with franchisees. And some franchisees are going to sugarcoat it. That's why you talk to more than one. I suggest 3 to 5 franchisees for validation. So you get different perspectives, and everybody's growth is going to look a little bit different. Are you working full-time and really work in your business? Do you have a strong sales background that you're probably going to launch a little bit faster than somebody who has an operations background and hires that salesperson, who the salesperson definitely is important, but nobody loves your business like you do.
Nobody does.
So you are going to help drive the growth and the profitability of your business better than anybody else. So we'll look at all of that together. I also, I usually recommend that any candidate has a franchise attorney, not your divorce attorney, not your
realtor attorney, realtor attorney,
but a franchise attorney. And I have 3 that my candidates work with on a regular basis. Have one of them review the franchise disclosure document and the franchise agreement prior to signing. Now, in franchising is following the same patterns and the same systems across the franchise system. So the franchisor is not going to make any changes to that franchise agreement. They're not going to accept any red lines. A franchise attorney understands and knows that. So what their role is really to help you understand what you're signing, what your responsibilities are going to be as a business owner. If you don't meet your obligations as a franchisee, what the consequences might look like. So you can go into that agreement eyes wide open. I think that's really important.
Like we're not trying to hide something from you. Like we try to be, but back to being like transparent and like being like open and asking all the questions is like, I try to answer every question that I have as transparent, but if the candidate's not telling me something, like, and sometimes I've been doing this long enough, I can kind of pick up on. I'm like, there's something that's not like you're not asking. But if you don't share with your broker or myself what your concerns are, I can't address them. And that FDD is a couple 100 pages, and there's a lot of stuff in there. It's very important, and I can review it. But if I don't know what your concerns are all the way, I can't always point it out. Right? Very similar. You also mentioned in the FDD, the opening and closing, right? So if you have a franchise that you're considering that's launched 50 units in 2025 and they closed 48, like that's something that, that's something to look at. So explain to me why that's important to you with your candidates.
Because I want to look at the franchise system, and the predictability of success doesn't guarantee your success as an individual franchise owner. But if we're seeing good, healthy, steady growth in a franchise system, and if they're in an industry like pet care that continues to grow, I've looked at a lot of FDDs in the pet care industry, so I can see what good, steady, healthy growth looks like, or explosive growth. I've talked to the franchisors and have an understanding of what their support team looks like. Is it just the founder that's going to support you and all the new franchisees and do franchise development and come into your market and help with training? That's a little bit tight. Or do they have a team of experts around them? Do they have a call center? Do they have somebody who's going to help you with technology? Somebody who's going to be a regular business coach to you? So what does that support system look like? If it's an emerging brand, is the CEO or founder going to give you their cell phone number if you have an emergency and you need to get a hold of somebody right away and you can't get a hold of your business coach? What does that look like? So looking at those numbers gives me an indication of some of the questions that I will ask for my clients. And then I will share and say, you ask the same questions, and see if you feel comfortable with those answers as well. Attrition, it happens. There are going to be some franchisor or franchisees that just decide this probably isn't a good fit, or life happens and they need to relocate, or they got a really good job. So it's normal to see some franchisees not stick through the full 10 years, they may sell or transfer their business to a neighboring franchisee, for example. But I also don't want to see, there's one brand in particular, I think they sold 100 locations 2 years ago, and half of those locations still are not open because they don't have the support to get the real estate to do the growth. So that's important as well. And
I've always heard like your Fran Dev, so franchise development, your Fran Dev team can't outpace operations.
Yes.
Like you can't outsell. It's bad. It's terrible to like sell more than you can support because, like I said, we sell franchises on good unit economics and happy franchise owners. And if you sold more than you can help, then that's not going to lend to those two things. And then you're almost at a stopgap on, right? Then you have hemorrhaging and people want to leave and all this kind of crazy stuff that happens. But yeah, you cannot outperform your operations team, which sometimes from a Fran Dev's perspective, I'm like, get more operations team. Like, yeah, hurry. But that also isn't quick. Like you just can't snap your fingers and bring in another business consultant or business coach or a new marketing person and they're up to speed. So that's one of the responsibilities of the franchisor, like our CEO and our development officers and all that to keep me in line. So here I do both franchise sales, Fran Dev, and I help with business consulting with my franchise owners. So I do both. So there's got to be that, that pace, right? Like I have to be able to do both at the same time. And so there's times where you pull back your Fran Dev budget, right? Because there's no need. I tell my franchise owners, sometimes we're too tight. We're not going to spend money to get more customers because we can't service what we have. It's very similar here is we can't outpace operations. We can only onboard and support so much. And it doesn't do anybody any good to shove another 10 through and not have them open in terms of brick and mortar, or have them fail. Like there's only so much time we have, and we don't want our franchise owners here. We don't want our franchise owners to ever feel like a number. Like, oh, she'll get to me when she gets to me. Like want them to feel like they're the most important franchise owner I have, and I want them to have my undivided attention, and I can only do so much. So I like that you had said that, it's exciting when the brand's selling a lot and there's a lot of energy around it, but let's stop and think and let's look and see what happened after those franchise agreements were sold.
Yes.
And then where are we kind of going from there? So what do you say for someone that may have, and maybe it doesn't come up, but somebody that's bought a franchise, like the one you spoke about, that they've sold their franchise agreement and now they're in queue. Like they're in queue waiting. Like what do they do? I never thought about that. Like,
what do they do? Sell one of those.
If you have someone, like I'm sure you've bumped into people that were like, I bought. And
so I know other consultants who, so I'm very ingrained in the consultant community. Yeah. I'm a mentor. I'm part of some mastermind groups in franchising. So I think that's another important element of my role is I stay really in tune with what's going on in the market and with franchises. And when people are like, this is the hottest new brand, I take pause and I go, why? Why is this the hottest new brand? And people will talk to me about it, and I'll kind of vet it through other franchise consultants like myself, or talk to the brand myself, just to kind of get my gut reaction, because my gut's pretty spot on.
Yeah, after 5 years, you're probably.
But if somebody's in queue to on pace, I would suggest that they look at their franchise agreement again and see what the franchisor promised as far as when they would help them get get the franchise open. Is the franchisor upholding their part of the franchise agreement? And if not, then that's a discussion. Like, do you want to stay in queue, or do you want to step aside, because the franchise agreement goes both ways. It's an agreement between the franchisor and the franchisee, and you both are committed to the same agreement. And
sometimes there's uncomfortable conversations. And I tell my candidates that too. I'm like, I'm here. I'm going to help you get into your franchise, get you up and running, and then you and I will meet regularly, most of the time monthly. I should say always monthly, most of the time more often. And there's going to be sometimes you want to do something or something happen where I have to. Like that's a no-go. Like that's a no-go. Or there's times where you have to talk about compliance, and the word compliance or the word non-compliant is probably the bigger word. And sometimes we have to say, like, I know what I can see your excitement in this aspect, but that doesn't align with our brand standards or our brand goals, and so you can't do that. And then sometimes they want to do that, and then I'm like, well, you would be non-compliant.
Yes.
And non-compliant means you get a nastygram from the attorney saying you have to stop this or fix this in this amount of time, or you could lose your franchise, right? So there's good and bads to franchising. The good things is the systems, the process, the procedures, all of that stuff. But the other part is you can't go too far off the reservation sometimes, right? Like you can't go crazy on certain things. Some things we're like, yeah, like that seems like you're good. But other times, like you cannot drive a vehicle that doesn't fit our brand standards, right? Like we are a mobile company. We're in Phoenix today, and we call them tank inspections, compliance checks to make sure you're representing the brand the way it should be. So if you decide that you want a hot pink F350, perfect for you personally. That's not in our brand standards, right? You cannot do that. So do you ever have those kind of conversations with people, or do you ever get a sense of a candidate that's like, you're like, you'd be a great independent owner. You're probably not a good fit for franchising.
Well, I give extreme examples. So for example,
that pink F350.
Yeah, pink 350, or if you want to open up a cycle studio, for example, you don't want another franchisee down the street, your neighbor, selling hamburgers in the back of their cycle studio. It's just not on brand standards. So if somebody's like, well, your neighbor's selling hamburgers out of the back of their cycle place, so why can't you? It just seems weird. I know it's an extreme weird example, but being part of a franchise means following systems and selling a product or service, whatever that might be. And it protects you as a franchisee too, because you don't want another franchisee somewhere else doing something completely different than you. Let's say they're offering some very bizarre different service, and they live in Nashville and then they relocate to Phoenix and they want to utilize the same service in Phoenix. And they're like, well, Nashville they offered XYZ. Like they took my daughter to the gym and took the dog to the
that's not what we do, though.
To this and that. And it's like, well, yeah, that's not what our role is. So there's standards to protect the franchisor, they're to protect you as a franchisee, and they're the reputation of the franchise system. So you want to follow along to the
Sometimes
rules.
when a franchisor tells you the F350, the pink, that's not on brand standards, the franchise owner that I have to tell that to sometimes may be like, well, I really hate that you're telling me this and I want to do what I want to do. But think of it from the opposite side. And Phoenix here, we have one franchise owner, but let's say Phoenix was two franchise owners, right? And we have one franchise owner that's doing things that are not on brand standard in one market.
Yes.
That can impact you as a neighbor. So sometimes when I have to tell people that that's not in brand standard and they get a little irritated by it, think of it from the other side. Like if there's someone else that want to do something that wasn't on brand standard and they're your neighbor, right? So now your customers are seeing, like you said, the F350, or my other example is you don't see pizza at McDonald's. No. Like we know what we do. We've tested what we do. We know how to do it. We got the process and the procedure. So there's no need to go out there and invent your own doggy sunscreen and put the Scoop Soldiers logo on there, right? Like it's not what we do. And my other thing is always like, if you decide that you're going to add doggy sunscreen to your list of services at Scoop Soldiers.
Do they make such a thing?
No, I don't even know. They probably do. They probably do. But then you're paying royalty on that. So now you're paying royalty on a service or a product that we can't support and I can't help you grow. So why would you do that? Like, why would you, so there's all kinds of different things, but I always try to remind franchise owners that if something that's not compliant is not directly towards you, think of it as if your neighbor was asking for that same thing, how it would sometimes not jive with what we're doing. That doesn't mean you can't open another company selling doggy sunscreen.
Right, exactly. Complimentary service.
Not to us. So who's a good candidate for you? If someone's watching today and they're like, you know what, I'd like to own a franchise. I know nothing. Who's a good candidate for you to work with? Like, how do you lead them to where they need to be?
Well, I say just let's book an initial call. Let's learn a little bit more about what has you looking at business ownership for yourself. You do need to have some money to invest in a franchise. $50,000 or more is ideal. There are a couple of opportunities in a funder that I work with that $25,000 with some other stipulations. We can get you funded for a lot of great brands. So you do have to have some cash liquidity available. Somebody who's willing to bet on themselves, because it does take some grit and some stamina to invest in a business. So What's your driving motivator, and are you willing to roll up your sleeves and work hard? Doesn't mean you have to work hard forever, but getting a business launched it takes time. So you can't just sign a check and sign an agreement and open your doors and expect the cash
the big
flow
bags
to
of money
be
to show
coming
up.
in. Yeah, exactly. So I do encourage a spouse or a partner to be involved in as many of the conversations as possible. Even if they're not going to be involved in the business, they're likely going to be on that franchise agreement. You don't want to get all the way through, get super excited about investing in a business, and then your spouse is like, we're not doing this business.
Where did this come from? It doesn't even look right.
So I think that's important. And then know, like, where do you want to have your franchise? So I'm working with a candidate now. He lives in Illinois, and he wants to open a business in Nashville. And so, what's the time frame for doing that? So how quickly do you want to open a business? Are you thinking 6 months or a year down the line? Now is probably not the right time for us to have that conversation, because the territory for the brands that I present to you today might not be available in 6 months or a year. Scoop Soldiers is, you have some markets that are sold out.
They're sold out.
So we need to make sure that we time it right. So when you're ready, you can pull the trigger when we find the right one and you've gone through discovery.
Yeah, I agree. And we allow franchise owners they don't have to live in the market that they service. So a franchise owner here owns Phoenix, Las Vegas, Raleigh, and Charlotte. And it works fine for us, right? We have periscoopers, we have all the things. We're set up to help franchise owners own businesses remotely. Not all brands are, which is fine. They're just different. And then even for us, the franchise owner here, like, running things from the other side of the country is not always as easy. It works. We're fine doing it, but you can't just jump in the car and run over to Raleigh and fix a flat tire. Like, these things are all different. So that's another thing to kind of consider too. And like you said, if the guy's looking for 6 or 9 months or 12 months down the road, would you suggest someone that's like, I think I might want to own a company when I retire, my next chapter, right?
Yes.
Do you encourage them to reach out early and just, let's poke holes in all the ideas and let's set up a plan so that when they get to the point where they're at the next chapter, they're set up to just hit the ground and run?
I do have a lot of those conversations. I would say probably 50% of my conversations, people aren't going to be ready for 6 months to a year, which is fine. We can talk about industries and what it is you're looking for, what your background is. But I might not present a lot of different brands in areas because, again, we don't know if they'll be available in 2 years when you're retiring. But if it's something that you wanted, if maybe you had a partner or something that you might consider early retirement and you're that excited about it, then we certainly can start having these conversations earlier.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, you gotta it's probably similar to buying a house, right? Like, if you're a renter now and you want to buy a house down the road, there's nothing wrong with getting your information sooner, right? That way you know what to expect, you know what to plan for, and things change, markets change. But yeah, again, similar to a house, buying a franchise is a pretty big stinking deal, and we try our hardest to get it right. We try our hardest to support our franchise owners, but yeah, it's still, whether it's a franchise or not, it's still a risk to open a business. Either way, the difference with a franchise is you have a franchise agreement. You can't, I always joke, like, there's no givesy backsies in franchising. You can't be like, nah, actually I'm done with this one now. You can resell. Like, if you win the lottery or life happens, you can put your business into resale and we will help resell your franchise, but there really isn't like a givesy backseat clause in franchise agreements.
I do encourage people to, like, if you're thinking about franchising or being an independent business owner or whatever that looks like for you, let's talk about what that financial investment looks like. So how much does it cost? So some people financially just aren't really ready to make that investment. And so just, if you're curious as to how much it costs to invest in a franchise, we can talk through that, and I can connect you with one of our franchise funding partners who can dive into the requirements. So for an SBA express loan of $150,000, you need a credit score of 685 or higher, and 10% cash liquidity for a home-based business, 20% cash liquidity on average for a brick and mortar. So we can talk about what that might look like for you, and that may help your timeline of sooner or later or never.
Or never, yeah. So one of the things that we talk about, or it comes up not all the time, but often, is debt service. right? So I have a candidate that comes and they want to buy a franchise and they've got, enough money to get started. I feel confident in the area. I feel like we're good, but they might be tight. And my concern always is debt service, because the answer I almost always get, well, I can get a loan. I'm like, that's great. You can. But now on top of your operating expenses and your royalty and whatever other things come with it, now you have to include that debt service to pay off your loan. So is that something, I would assume it is, but is that something that you guys take into consideration when you have someone like, I'm just going to get a loan?
Well, that's why I have an Excel spreadsheet. She has a napkin.
I have a very big napkin, but still, right?
So we talk about what that SBA process looks like. And I do encourage you to have that conversation about your franchise early on. Money doesn't come rolling in on day one. It takes some time to build.
Yeah.
So while there is that cushion that's built into your initial investment cost, 3 months operating capital, what does that 3 months operating capital really look like? And are you replacing a salary for yourself or a spouse? Are you paying a general manager? Because that's in addition to whatever is in the franchise disclosure document in item 7. So one of the reasons why franchisees fail is because they weren't well capitalized. And so it's important. I want people to succeed. So if it's not now, it doesn't mean never, but I don't want to put somebody in a place where they're so strapped for money, they can't pay their employees, or they can't buy supplies for their business, or they stop marketing and then they stop getting new business.
Yeah.
And then they go out of business. I'm seeing a lot of restaurants. I don't do a lot in the restaurant space, because even some well-known chains are going out of business. And so I want you to succeed as a franchisee. And so if you're tight or strapped, or we're trying to figure out like, if we're just
tight, I'm like, oh, that's the same face. I'm like, oh, like,
then let's pause. We can pause, and
let's give it 6 months. Let's see where we're at. Like, let's put a little more in the bank so we're getting a little faster.
And I've had conversations with franchisors too, that, somebody could sign their franchise agreement now and then build in a plan that they start their training and open in 4 months. So they have 4 months more of working that they can put in the bank, so they can have that 6 months of living expenses. I do encourage you to have either a spouse that can cover living expenses, or you can cover living expenses for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
In addition to whatever you're paying for your franchise and your
even for like your
operations.
personal things too. Like I want people, if they're going to buy a franchise, and I always tell them, I want you to be able to get pizza on Friday nights. If you guys always get family pizza, I don't want you to not be able to do that. Like there are sacrifices that you're going to make when you start a business, franchise or not. But I want you to be able to do the things that your family is used to doing, right?
Yes.
So, and I don't want to sink the ship getting right off the dock before we even get anywhere, because that, back to the FDD, that doesn't help me, that doesn't help you. And I genuinely feel that, and I don't get everything right all the time, when I go to bed at night, I know that everyone that I have helped put into a franchise, that I felt confident that they were going to succeed. If I have the slightest inkling that I'm like, like we're tight or whatever, I will always try to figure a way to get it done, but not at the expense of my franchise owner in the future. Like, that doesn't help anybody.
Right.
And I do want to know that I did my best to put the right person. It's got to be the right person in the right area at the right time. And shoving it through just to put a peg on the board doesn't help anybody at all. Like 100%. And people sometimes get irritated when you tell them it's not the right time, but it's not. And we do this all the time. So we know, we know if something doesn't look right. Hopefully we know if something doesn't look right, and we take care to make sure that we put it the right way it should, so we're not shoving anything through. What do you think one of the struggles is about being a franchise broker?
For me is if you aren't ready, if it's not the right time to move forward, and we have a call booked, or you have a call booked with the franchisor and you can't make it, or the timing's not right, just let us know. We're totally cool with that. Don't just ghost us, okay?
Right.
I think that's probably the most frustrating part. Or people, like, if you're going to get a loan or look at funding, let's be very transparent on, did you just buy a house, or you're looking at a new boat or a car or something, because that will come up during the funding process.
Yes.
So we need to be very transparent and very open. So I build a very powerful relationship with my candidates and want to know good, bad, ugly, some warts. If something, if you have credit that maybe needs a little bit work, let's talk about that early. So we're not at the finish line and you're ready to sign and you can't get funded because of a credit issue or something else. So just being very, very transparent. And if it's not the right fit, not the right time, I'm not the right franchise consultant, Scoop Soldiers isn't the right brand.
Right? Yeah.
Just tell me.
Yeah.
You can text me. You can call me. You can call Kandra. Communication is important.
I would say that too. Like for franchising too, it's not like it's got to be, like I said, the right person in the right area at the right time. And it sounds so corny, but this is a partnership. If we award a franchise to somebody who it's not the right fit and they dig their heels in and they cross their arms, we have to fight them for 10 years. That's not great. They don't want that to happen. And then the same thing with us. If we don't do right by our franchise owners, they're not going to succeed, which means we don't succeed. If our franchise owner does not do right by their franchisor, it sounds totally corny, but it's a check and balance for me. Like if you're not doing your part, this is not going to happen. If we're not doing our part, this is not going to happen, which is why I think the discovery process on both sides, franchisee and franchisor, is an interview process. You should be interviewing me and my brand just as much as I'm interviewing you. So when you don't make those calls or I give you homework, I usually need the homework for a reason, but I'm also I'm watching to see, did I get what I needed back when I was going to need it back? Because once we're already in agreement, again, I don't want to have to fight you to get your stuff done, and I can't help you unless I have some things, right? So it really is like it sounds corny. It's 100% legit. You interview us as much as we interview you. You interview Laura as much as she's interviewing you. And if she's not the right broker for you, tell her. She'll find somebody else. I have told people that we are probably not the right brand for you, or encourage them to check out, Three Dog Bakery or, Dogtopia or whatever it is, right? Like you should check. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. At least I don't think I'm going anywhere. So you always reach back out, but it's worth the extra step back to make sure that we're in the right spot. I'm sure you would kind of agree. Forcing it.
Yeah. And if you're too busy to take the time to just go through the discovery process right now, that's okay too. It's busy. It's summertime and the kids are all in activities. It's the fall and there's fall ball and theater, and that's totally cool. But let's have a dialogue about it and see about when it's time to revisit it.
Because when you buy your franchise, when you're a franchise owner, you still have fall ball doesn't really, it matters, but it doesn't you can't just be like, well, I'm going to just pick this back up in November, right? Like that just doesn't work that way. It's you own a business. You're in it, whether
you can work around it, and it's your schedule to work around.
Still got to get done. It's still got to get done. Exactly. So you probably, I don't know how many people that you've helped, get awarded franchises, but you've done a lot. Is there any that sticks in your head as like you're never going to forget this brand or this couple or this situation that just maybe pulls at your heartstrings or was funny that you're like, wow, that was hilarious and that worked out well? Or
I have several. I just, I love my franchisees, and some of them I stay in contact with, and others, they've launched their business and it's all great. So ironically, I was getting new window coverings in my house. And so the sales guy came to my house and he's measuring my windows and asked me what I did. And I told him, and he's like, oh, my wife and I have been thinking about buying a business. And he's like, so could I call you later and see about a business? And they'd previously owned a business that his wife had started in their garage and scaled and grew. And then COVID happened and the business struggled. So anyway, we chatted. And so he's a neighbor of mine and now owns a property management company. And my window coverings look beautiful. And he got a business in the process. So that one was really cool. And then I'd lost my dad about 3 years ago, and I was working with a candidate last year who was pretty far with a brand, and then her dad died and he was in Africa. And she had to go take care of her family affairs and was gone for about a month. And we connected over the loss of a father, which was pretty powerful. And she said that was really important, that she had a connection outside of her family who could relate to her, because nobody else in her family was a business owner.
Yeah.
And her dad was kind of her biggest cheerleader to becoming
You're
a
gonna make me
business
cry. So
owner.
my dad is not always in great health lately, so you're gonna make me cry because like there's just having someone that you can just say, I need to say my words and I don't need you to fix anything, and someone to understand the business aspects of things. Like my job here, like it what happens with my family impacts here. Thankfully, Scoop Soldiers is fabulous, but someone that can understand it's part of owning a business is that work-life balance, and sometimes that shit tips the other way, and you still have to do both. So having someone that's been through it that you can connect with, that can help guide you through a discovery process during a crazy time is probably like, that would stick in my, I can see that would.
Yeah, so she paused and I'm like, it's totally fine. Like, we're not even talking about business right now. We're talking about how are you doing? And so anyway, a couple months later, she's like, you believed in me and you were that person for me. So she launched her business in May and is going strong. And
good.
So we stay connected and we follow each other on social medias. And so she's just a very special person in my life.
I'm glad you have those, right? Because I know that there's some that you, like, they're great franchise owners. It was a great interaction. But there are just certain connections that you make that you just connect. Like, it just sticks in your head, sticks in your heart. So I forgot to ask you, like, before we wrap up, tell me about your puppy. We were talking about when you first got here, and then I didn't get to finish my story, but tell me all about your puppies, because I love puppies.
Well, my puppy is an old lady now. She just turned 13. And she's a sweetheart. Her name is Barkley. So she's a pound puppy. Everybody always asks, what kind of dog is she? She's a lab mix, and she's getting a little bit of arthritis in her paws, but if we don't go on our morning walks, there is still, she's not happy. So sometimes I have early morning calls and the walk has to wait a little bit. But
she's giving you a stink eye from across the desk, like, hey, what are you doing? It's time
she has a dog. She's so spoiled too. She has a bed in my office. She has a bed in the bedroom. She has a bed in the living room. So she always has a soft spot to sleep.
To judge you harshly from while you're not walking her when you should be.
Yeah. Well, and I've had her since she was a little puppy. So
and it's like I've always had dogs that were very active, and like, it's great that they're active, but the moment you can't go now, they're like, I'm ready. Like, this is our routine. Like, I had a Rhodesian Ridgeback back when I ran a little bit more. She would bring me my shoes. And I'm like, I can't. She would bring me a shoe, and I'm like, I get it. And she would just keep bringing me before. She'd bring me like heels. I'm like, we don't wear those. She's like, I'm gonna bring you all your shoes until you get the leash, and then we're going somewhere. But I get it. They're very obviously, Scoop Soldiers. We love pets, but I do connect very well with everyone else that has dogs. I can't help it. Like, your babies are cute. Babies are fine. But gosh, if I could hold your puppy and like smooch him, I would love that.
Yeah, she's adorable. She's just right down the road.
I was like, so your commute in was very short, and I'm not, I mean, if you see like me up against the window later, you know that you can just, I'm fine. I'll be fine. So, but no, even though it wasn't a long commute in, we do appreciate, I know you're very busy. I appreciate your time. I very much appreciate like the mentorship that you've helped me with. You've always been around when I have a question to get answered. Like I said earlier, if you're not sure if it's right for you, or you're not sure where your next steps are, Laura's a great resource. If she can't help you, if her and I can't help you, we can find the person that can help you. So if you feel like you might want to own a business, whether it's independent or franchise, obviously franchise we know a lot about, reach out. We'd love to help. And even if you don't land here at Scoop Soldiers, which I always hope everyone does, I do very much. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. You've done this for a long time. It's getting the right person and the right brand. Again, hopefully it's with Scoop Soldiers, but it's not. It's most important for me to make sure that we've got the right people wherever they need to be. And if it's here, that's great. If it's not, I know that someone like Laura will help get you where you need to be. We'll link all of Laura's stuff below so that you can check her out and ask questions. For some reason you have a question about Scoop Soldiers, I'm happy to answer them. Laura can also point you in the directions that you need to be. But we always appreciate people watching and hope you find some entrepreneur inspiration, and keep watching, and hopefully maybe contact Laura or myself for more information down the road.
Thanks, Kendra, for having me on today.
We appreciate it, really do.